Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. But for now, the angels and I are here to help you come into a soothing, comforting sanctuary where you can rest, replenish, and hopefully fall asleep if that is your intention. This podcast weaves together two of my favorite forms of self-care that I rely upon in my life: connecting with the angels and also using a sleep podcast every night to help me fall asleep. So what I have found to be so helpful about sleep podcasts is they help build a bridge between my waking consciousness and that dreamy, drifty, abstract place in consciousness that happens just before I fall asleep. So I love bedtime. I have a beautiful waking life. But as I've gotten older, I have come to love bedtime. I am on a weird rhythm these days where I tend to be awake somewhere around 3 or 4 a.m. I don't actually get out of bed. I'm just awake. And by about 7 p.m., I start winding down and I'm in bed by 8. And I find that the sleep podcasts help me navigate that time of transition. And so I love bedtime. I tend to get everything ready for bed by 7 o'clock. So I pull the covers back and plump up my pillows just the way I like them. And then my bed, our bed, I'm married, so my husband and I share a bed. And then our bed is just ready, like an invitation to comfort and snuggliness, if that can be a word. And it's just there. It is ready for me when that moment comes and I surrender to bedtime. And then I crawl in bed. I usually crawl in bed earlier than my husband does. He stays up a little bit later than I do. And I fluff up the covers, pull them up just so. I put in my earphones. I do sleep with earphones. They fall out at some point in the night. And then I pick a podcast episode. And I turn the volume down low, a little bit lower than I would if I were listening to an audiobook. And then I drift off. Just last night, I listened to an episode of Sleepy by Otis Gray. And he's reading a book by Lucy Maud Montgomery that is not one of the Anne of Green Gables books. I can't even remember what it is in this moment. And I can't tell you a thing that happened because pretty early into the episode, I was gone and I have no idea what happened. And I just love that. And And as a podcast host, I know that it might seem strange that I am creating content that it's okay to fall asleep to. You may not be awake by the end of the episode, and that's okay. If it is an episode that you really want to hear and enjoy, you can always listen during your waking hours. It is permitted. You have my permission to listen to this while you're awake as well. I just wanted to give you some insight as to why I have felt guided to develop this as a sleep podcast. I recognize that this concept may be new to some of you, but I just think that there is a beautiful ancestral history of falling asleep to the murmuring of voices in the background, whether it's a bedtime story or whether it's the voices of adults in another part of the home while you as the child are drifting off to sleep. To me, the murmuring of loving voices fits into a different category than unwanted ambient noise. You know, if you hear your neighbors having a party or something, that can be very annoying and prohibitive to sleep. But there's something about hearing a soothing and comforting voice that is present for you, filled with love. That's where the angels come in. The angels are divine celestial beings. This universe is filled with love for you. It is a 24/7 broadcast that is always available for you. We just have to tune into it. It's like those old car radios or the transistor radios we had when we were kids. And you had to kind of turn the dial just so you could hear the broadcast. That's kind of how the angels work. As my guides like to say, we tilt our satellite dishes of consciousness towards the heavenly realms, and we tune in to the broadcasts of love that are always, always taking place for us. So I invite you to take some nice deep breaths in. And just to the best of your ability, allow your body to relax and sink into your bed or your chair or your futon, whatever you are sleeping in or resting in this moment. Just giving your body permission to let go of whatever came before this moment. You know, these days our lives can be a little busy and our consciousness is always participating in something, it seems like. And this is one of those moments where you can slow down and come into the quiet, come into sanctuary. I love the concept of sanctuary. We can experience sanctuary of a physical place, whether it's a place of worship that you have been in, or it is a garden that you love, or perhaps the home of someone who loves you dearly. So physical sanctuary can mean a lot of things. We also can experience vibrational sanctuary, where the love wraps us up like a beautiful, soft blanket, and we are held and cherished. And so it's my intention that each episode serves as a sanctuary for you. So again, just allowing your breath to flow to you. Breathing in gently and then releasing. And I'm going to call the angels in. They are already here, but I love sharing the ritual with you of bringing them forward. So I invite you into another breath as we call ourselves gently into the heart of God. And if God is not your word, into the heart of Source, into the heart of the universe, into the heart of divine light. And beautiful angels on high, we invite you to join us here. And angels, I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, with waves of comfort and of light, in service to each of our beloveds gathered here with us right now. Angels, I ask for blessings, helping to ease anything that feels like burdens, anything that feels overwhelming or heavy. I ask that you infuse us with resources and ascended vision and consciousness so that we may navigate whatever our circumstances are with greater grace and ease and joy. So I invite you to take some more nice deep breaths in. And I just love that we can ask the angels to help us ascend how we are relating to our circumstances. There is something that they often say at the University of Santa Monica, where I went to school. And they say how you relate to the issue is the issue. And I think that is such a powerful reminder. Right now I have something going on in my life. It's not horrible. It's not catastrophic or anything that could be debilitating. But it is a circumstance that has me deeply frustrated. And it is a situation over which I seemingly have very little influence, or the influence that I have feels hard and not at all infused with the kind of lightness of spirit that typically gives me wings and allows me to access resources. And just this morning, I was asking the angels to help me see this through new eyes, to help bring me into a brighter place in consciousness so that more resources, internal resources, right, divine resources will be visible and accessible to me. And I have found that this shift in consciousness, more often than not, profoundly helps me. Because if I'm in a situation where I am feeling frustrated or disempowered, I can easily sit in that. I am really good at just sitting there and being upset with whatever the situation is. I think it's easy, right? Our present day experiences are very real to us. And if you, like me, are someone who experiences life through your emotional center, I know for me, I can feel sad, disempowered, overwhelmed, And it's okay to feel those things. I don't want to make it sound as if I immediately liberate myself from the heaviness of whatever it is I am experiencing. But I also know that steeping in the heaviness of it for a long, extended period of time does not help me. So I sit in it for a little while. I think it's healthy to feel our feelings and to touch into whatever our experiences are. But then also, at some point, I feel that little knock on my door of consciousness that says, are you up for trying to see this in a different way or experiencing this from a different place in consciousness? And my answer is almost always yes. Yes, please. Help. Help, angels. That is a powerful prayer, just so you know. Help. I need help. And so I am having one of those mornings where I am feeling frustrated by an experience that I am having. Again, the details are not important. I know it might sound juicy, but it's not that interesting. It is just something that shows up on my path. And when it does, it's like a whole skein of yarn that has become so tangled I can't find the beginning or the end, and I have to sort of untangle things a little bit in my consciousness. And then I remember I can ask for help. That I, like you, we, are resilient, ever-evolving beings. And every day is a new day. And so, as I remember how I relate to the issue is the issue, that beautiful pearl of wisdom from the University of Santa Monica, I ask the angels to help me find a different way of holding in consciousness for my experience that hopefully will give me altitude, that will help me pivot in a meaningful way, a positive, beautiful, grace-filled way. And I think that is one of the aspects of this approach to life that I find so helpful. We all have experiences and we all have stories and narratives in our lives, and they are deeply meaningful and powerful. And the lovely thing about life is there are always opportunities to make subtle shifts with how we are holding in consciousness or approaching our experiences or our circumstances, where we can find some leverage, where we can let the light in. Yes, that sometimes we just need the littlest bit of light, just a candle in the darkness, helps us find our way into the open door where the light comes streaming in. So I share this with you in hopes that it helps. Perhaps there is something that feels like a tangled ball of yarn for you as well. So here is to our beautiful angels, helping to untangle whatever is happening in consciousness so that we can come into the light, so that we can come into a state of freedom and joy and divine creativity that we can blossom open into the new, that we can take flight and invoke a sense of adventure and curiosity and playfulness and explore what is possible through our lives, that we are not beholden to what has always been, that each day is a new day. Each night as we go to sleep, we are liberated from the experiences of the day before. We get to go into the astral realm and connect and learn and grow and come into the next day hopefully feeling more resourceful, more in alignment to that which we seek to experience. So I invite you to take another nice deep breath in, allowing the angels to help clear your energy field and to help bring a lightness of spirit. I love that term, lightness of spirit, to your consciousness, to your body, and to your life. And so just give yourself permission to let go of whatever came before this moment. And come into the awareness that you are a divine being in human form. And there is deep love here for you. Your angels hear your prayers. They are answering your requests. And goodness is flowing to you right now. And so as you rest, my beautiful friend, the angels will be with you, taking good care of you. And while you rest, I am going to read to you, and we'll travel through some stories together. And it is time for one of my favorite Storytime themes. It is time for TV Guide. I know some of you love these as well. I feel like it almost needs its own jingle. It's TV Guide time, TV Guide time. But I'm not really a jingle writer, as you have just experienced. But we have a TV guide. And this TV guide is from December, 16th to the 22nd, 1979. The cover has the cast of 8 is Enough. So just to set the stage, because I always like to tell you where I was in life, because that will help you understand some of my reflections as we flip through this issue. 1979, I am 17 years old. Easy for me to do the math. 17 years old. So I am very much involved in my social group of friends at that point. Everything is about my friends. I have, kind of gone through that time of self-actualizing in terms of my parents. I think I'm heavy into the eye roll phase of being a teenager. I think I was fairly obnoxious in that because I was very independent and I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be with my friends and I wanted to be grown up, and I had to figure out where I was going to go for school. I was not thrilled with school at all, but it was something I had to do. Also, at this point, we did not have a VCR. So in terms of our television consumption, we watched what we watched when it was on. There may have been some form of early cable available in our area. I don't recall that we had it, though. cable then is not what cable is now, with 250 stations. It was more of a mechanism to deliver broadcast channels to places that did not have good reception. And then also there may have been one or two premium channels that were available. But I don't believe that we had that at this point in time. We likely did have a color television in the house. It was in the living room. I had my own bedroom at this point that my father had built out for me. It was a very tiny little room in the back of the house, but it was mine. And I did have a black and white television in there. It was a small 12-inch black and white television, and I would probably be a good 8 feet away from it. But it was still mine, and I could watch what I wanted when I wanted to, which was a huge sense of freedom. The kids today will never know what that's like, right? That the whole family has to watch just one receiver, right? That there's one television, and there has to be a general consensus about what is watched. That in my day, when you got your own television, it was freedom. It was beautiful. So that was where I was in life at that moment. I always find the ads interesting in the TV guide. So in 1979, we were, using those Polaroid cameras, yet where the picture came out the bottom. And so this is an ad for the Sylvania flash bulb bars, those long flash bulb bars that would go on the top of the camera, or the cubes. Do you remember the flash bulb cubes that would rotate as you used them? Back then, taking a picture was a big deal. You needed film and you needed flash, and then you needed to get the pictures developed. How many of you remember the joy of having a mysterious roll of film and not knowing what was on it until you got it developed? A different way of life back then. There is also an ad here for a snack called wheat nuts, which I did not remember until I saw this ad. I don't think I ever ate them. They almost look like walnuts, but they're made out of wheat, and they're from Pillsbury. So introducing Pillsbury wheat nuts, a delicious crunchy new snack. Unlike ordinary nuts, wheat nuts are made with the goodness of real wheat. Look for them in your grocer's nut section. So they were trying to come up with a new, quote, nut. So I don't remember them really taking off, but I do remember them vaguely, but I don't think I ever ate one. And I also should reflect, I don't know if you caught this is a December 18th issue, somewhere around there. So there's going to be a lot of Christmas stuff happening in this issue of TV Guide. But first we're Saturday. So Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon is all about the kids' stuff usually, or sports. Again, being a teenager, I am sure I was asleep until 2. And then if I was up, I don't know, I was probably just watching whatever was on or reading a book or something. But more often than not, come the afternoon, I would have gone to the mall with my friends, as many a teenage girl was likely to do in that age. But I will say, as I was looking through everything, I noticed that there was a Bay City Rollers show on. I don't know why that cracked me up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's animated. I don't know anything about it, but I do remember the Bay City Rollers as cute boys who sang. But again, at 17, I was kind of over that stage of my life. There is a football game. I guarantee you this was on in our house because it was the Chicago Bears meet the Redskins. For sure, that would have been on in our house. I would not have been watching. I did not care about football back then. But often on the weekends, what I do remember is weekends were for bagels. We had a great bagels. It still exists in Skokie, New York Bagels and Bialys. And for sure on one of either Saturday or Sunday, my father would go and get us fresh bagels by the dozen. And so often when I think about Saturdays or Sundays, I think about fresh, hot bagels or deli or something like that. Okay, but we'll keep going. But I just had to tell you about Bay City Rollers in case you as well were a Bay City Rollers fan back then. There is a Wide World of Sports, a NASCAR race on. I would not have watched, but I do remember Wide World of Sports being one of the only options to watch on the weekends. And so I would be hoping for something I would be interested in, like ice skating or gymnastics. Anything else I really didn't care about. Okay, so now it is 7 p.m. on Saturday. It's not prime time yet, but they're ramping up, right? So hee-haw is an option for those of you who liked hee-haw. I really never watched it. But guests are Tennessee Ernie Ford and Jody Miller. There's something called A Cosmic Christmas, which is an animated special. And Lawrence Welk is on as well. But I will tell you, excitingly, on this Saturday night, way back when, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the original animated, was on. I always loved that one. So that was going to be on, followed by something I have no recollection of called The Tiny Tree, another animated special. And if The Grinch was not your thing, I suppose for some people that wasn't their thing, you could have opted to watch Chips. Remember that? With Ponch and John. So John's wallet and Ponch's car are stolen as a relentless streak of bad luck afflicts the duo. And if that wasn't your thing, you could watch Welcome Back, Kotter. For sure, that would have been a good option for me at 17 years old. Barbarino, Vinnie Barbarino, played by none other than John Travolta, grieves after the swank coat he gave himself for Christmas is trampled during a school fire drill, then ripped off by two muggers. Poor Vinnie. And then there's some movies and Oral Roberts, which I would have never watched. And I suppose that's appropriate being Christmas, that there's a lot of Christian programming on. There is a movie called Who Will Save Our Children? And it's, the couple is Shirley Jones, of course we know as Mrs. Partridge, and Len Carew, whose plans to adopt two troubled youngsters became entangled into a bitter court fight in a 1978 TV movie. I always loved those things. I don't know why. I've always loved soap operas and those kind of heart-wrenching dramas. But I don't think I would have even been home. It was a Saturday night and I was young. I would have been out with my girlfriends, I'm sure. But you know what else is an option? Another Saturday evening staple, The Love Boat. And I'll give you a moment if you need to sing the theme song to yourself. Set your course for adventure, your mind on a new romance. So, in this one, a separated couple, played by Ruth Buzzy and Sid Caesar, so comedic genius there, both ventriloquists are mistakenly assigned to the same cabin. Oh, the hijinks. I love that word, hijinks. I said that actually that's not in TV Guide, that's just me being corny. The second one, identical twins, Sib and Trish Barnstable, and their fiancés, David Nelson and Fred Travelina, prepare for their double wedding. And Julie, played by Lauren Toos, I don't know how to pronounce her name, I should, falls for a bungling widower, played by Tony Roberts, who is traveling with his bratty daughters. Well, so there you go. That's always good for a Saturday night, right? And then Fantasy Island, because that was always a double header, right? Love Boat and Fantasy Island. If I was babysitting, that's what I was watching. So, a cosmetics manufacturer, played by Eva Gabor, on the verge of bankruptcy, wants to save her business by marrying a rich man. Always, always, that dream, right? I'll get somebody rich to bail me out. And the number two story is a method actor, played by Robert Reed, also known as, I'll wait for it, Robert Reed, who remembers? Mr. Brady. Okay, he's Dad Brady from the Brady Bunch. Prepares for his next role by stepping into the shoes of the character of Count Dracula, which, because it's early in the morning, I almost said Count Chocula, which would have been an even funnier episode. Okay, I'm just going to crack myself up here. You feel free to roll your eyes at my strange attempts at humor. Also airing, because it is Saturday night, we have Saturday Night Live from New York. It's Saturday night, and the guests are, the host is Elliot Gould, Bob and Ray, and reggae musician Peter Tosh. At this point, the cast includes Garrett Morris, Bill Murray, Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and Jane Curtin. So Chevy Chase has left the cast at this point. And if SNL was not your thing, you could have watched a Jerry Lewis movie called Way, Way Out. Jerry Lewis mugs his way through the farcical space opera about Americans versus Russians on the moon. Well, there you go. But I would have been out with my friends, and then I would have just gone home and gone to sleep. I don't really remember watching a lot of SNL back then. And again, the thing about SNL was that you had to watch it live. There wasn't a VCR. There wasn't YouTube. You couldn't catch up on the good bits the next day. You either watched it or you missed it. Life was happening in that moment. You had to choose. You had to choose what you were going to participate in. So, there you go. A Saturday night in the life of a 17-year-old girl from Skokie. I'm going to be flipping right through Sunday daytime. I assure you I was sleeping and eating bagels and reading a book or something. Or, again, getting together with my girlfriends, because at that age stage, I could not get enough of my friend group. I have this fuzzy memory of my parents saying, "You just saw them." I had to see them again. We would get together and we would shop and eat. Back then, they had just come out with like the Nestle cookie dough tubes and the Mrs. Somebody's little medallions of frozen cookie dough. I don't remember who those were. And we would get together and we would eat. You have to go back, if you're into that, you don't have to do anything. But in my episode of the Memories of Evanston, I share with you how my girlfriends and I used to go to this wonderful restaurant called Fritz That's It and eat a lot of salad bars thinking we were being healthy. We would just probably consume 2,500 calories. So we were very much into cookie dough back then, and boys and shopping. So we were probably doing something back then. I will share with you what I think is a genius title for a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie with Beau Bridges and Julie Harris. It is called Stubby Pringle's Christmas. I never heard of that before. But it's a Christmas Eve story set in 1910 Montana. It is a special night for Stubby Pringle, played by Beau Bridges, a lonesome young cowboy who sets out on a 20-mile ride to a schoolhouse dance, hoping to meet the same girl who kissed him there last year. Okay, so Stubby's trying to go to a dance and kiss a girl. And there's more, I'm sure, to this story, but we'll keep going. The other thing that is airing, well, first off, I must give props to 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes was on. It was Sunday night. promise you that was what was on in our house. My parents never missed 60 Minutes. We could never miss it. So if there was anything that I wanted to watch that competed with 60 Minutes, I would have to either go down to the basement television, or now at this point I had a TV in my room that I could have gone and watched. But I remember this one. When I saw the title, it rang familiar for me. And the title is, Who Are the DeBolts and Where Did They Get 19 Kids? Which was the story of the DeBolts, Bob and Dorothy. They're a California couple and their 19 kids, including 6 of their own and 13 others whom they've adopted or made their legal wards. And they had adopted children from around the world who were disabled. And Henry Winkler narrated this. And I seem to recall that their story was being told far and wide in a wonderful, inspiring way. Whether it was Dinah Shore or Mike Douglas or this special People magazine. So I just remember in consciousness that it was a story that many of us knew about. So I'm sure that would have been really interesting to watch. Also, Sunday night, there is a special episode of All in the Family. Archie, Edith, Mike, and Gloria reunited for Christmas. Archie and Edith visit Santa Barbara for one of the wildest family reunions that ever gladdened the hearts of dingbats, meatheads, and just plain folks. This is a 1-hour holiday special. I'm sure we were watching that. Also, you know what else is on? It was already a thing, was the original Battlestar Galactica, which I remember watching. I thought Richard Hatch was really cute, but if there was someone who I thought was cute, I was in. So this episode, a Cylon kamikaze attack leaves the Galactica severely damaged, and Adama, played by Lauren Green, gravely wounded. Apollo is Richard Hatch, and Starbuck is Dirk Benedict, who I also thought was really cute. And then at 10 o'clock, we have Dallas, which I know I was probably watching. I was into Dallas back then, probably like most of America. Kidnappers. Ooh, so we're starting off with high stakes. Kidnappers hold Bobby, played by Patrick Duffy, for ransom, using Cliff Barnes as the go-between. But an impatient JR, played famously by Larry Hagman, dangerously takes the matter into his own hands. I'm sure I was watching that. But here's one that I thought was so interesting. They have a special on one of the networks where they are doing interviews and film clips for the movie King of the Gypsies, which I haven't thought about that movie in years, but as soon as I saw the title, what I remembered was this was the movie that launched Eric Roberts' career, with a very young Eric, not very young, I think he must have been in his 20s, but a young Eric Roberts. He just took your breath away, right? He just became this rising star from this movie. And Brooke Shields was also in it, which I forgot. So I don't know, I'll have to go and look that movie up again. But they have a special about the movie. They're not airing the movie because the movie had just come out, but it is a special about the movie, which perhaps I would have watched. And now we move on to Monday. And, you know, I was going to say I was probably in school, but if it's December 18th, I am probably on winter break. Yay, so cool. Would be happy for that. Ryan's Hope is on, which that was a soap I was for sure watching back then. I don't know. Oh, I probably was into All My Children then, because that's likely around the Jenny and Greg era, which I definitely watched the Jenny and Greg era of All My Children. I don't know that I was watching One Life to Live. For sure was deeply entrenched, though, with General Hospital. For those of you who love the afternoon talk shows, which I watched a lot of because I would be home from school at that point, unless I had to work. I worked at Montgomery Wards back then. We have Dinah with guests Mac Davis, Dorothy Hamill, who we loved, singer Edna Lev, I don't know who that is, the Chinese Review of Taiwan, who performed juggling feats. That was always a good show. And Merv Griffin looks at the world of fashion models with actress models Barbara Carrera and Cheryl Tiegs. That was always part of the decision in the afternoon when you were watching television of who was on each talk show so that you could pick the best one. And so now we get to prime time. And you know what's on? Of course you wouldn't. You'd be like, I don't know. Okay, so one of my favorite Christmas cartoons ever, and Wes's for sure, A Charlie Brown Christmas. Christmas time is here. Right? Who doesn't love that? So it's A Charlie Brown Christmas is on. And so the ad says, the Emmy Award-winning holiday special, A Charlie Brown Christmas. I paused there because I thought I really should save this episode for Christmas time, but I don't want to do it now. I'll just replay it then. Good grief, the Peanuts gang has a fabulous present you can open before Christmas. Of course. Okay, so just look forward to this as a replay around Christmas time, but I'm going to bring you Christmas in May because I can. There's also a Little House on the Prairie episode, but we for sure would have been watching A Charlie Brown Christmas. There's also NFL football, which I assure you would not have won in our house. At 9:30 in the evening, so again, prime time, One Day at a Time, which I would have been watching because I loved Valerie Bertinelli and I knew we would be friends if we knew each other in real life. So working in a fast food restaurant proves a lot faster paced than a smug Barbara anticipated when she got the job. Barbara, of course, played by my dream best friend, Valerie Bertinelli. I related to her greatly. Then at the 10 o'clock hour, we have Lou Grant, which I still think I remember being a phenomenal show. I loved that show. In this one, Mrs. Pinchon, played by Nancy Marchand, is infuriated by the Trib's derogatory piece on the director of a charity in which she is affiliated, and Rossi, played by Robert Walden, ruffles more feathers when he accuses the city room staffers of having conflicts of interest. We for sure would have watched that. I think that was a show we all enjoyed, which was good when we could find a show that we all liked. And for those of you who stayed up late and watched Johnny Carson, guest host was John Davidson, who always was very charismatic, who's adorable and charismatic. Or you could watch The Rockford Files in reruns, which was also a great show. Always went over well in our house. In this episode, Rockford, plays by James Gardner, who I could just really read the phone book. I always loved him no matter what he did, gets on the wrong side of both the police and a pair of goons when he accedes to a former girlfriend's request that he finds a mystery man. The reason I stumbled over that is girl and friend were as there as separate words, and my mind got confused. I don't know why I felt that you needed to know that. I think because I have already decided I was not going to edit that out. Ooh, and then tomorrow with Tom Snyder, psychic research experts Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, I did not know I would be interested in a show like that back then, and I would have been sleeping. I was not awake at that point. But now, all these years later, I would love to know what they talked about. All right, and then we'll get through Tuesday, and then we'll have a part 2, because we'll have to go through the rest of this TV guide for sure, but I won't make it through the whole thing in this episode. So, for Dinah Shore, on Tuesday, we have guest Loretta Lynn, Elizabeth Ashley, Susan Anton, and Bianca Jagger. So that would have been good. I guess I would have watched that if I were home at that point. Merv Griffin has Arnold Schwarzenegger, actors James Mason and Mary Lou Toto, Hugh Downs, and comedian Lonnie Shore. I don't know that I would have watched that because no one there would have appealed to me as a 17-year-old. Mike Douglas. Okay, so listen, I just have to give a shout out to my cousin Susie on this one because, Bleadon, you're going to be very excited about this. The co-hosts are Deirdre Hall and Jed Allen from Days of Our Lives. Okay, I would not have been watching that, but I'm sure my cousin Susie would have been because she was a huge, I was going to say is, I don't know that she watches it anymore, but she was a huge Days fan. And that would have been a big deal because when you loved your soaps, like when I loved my soaps, I wanted to see the actors and other things. You know, it wasn't as accessible as it is today. You know, you had to sort of catch them when you could. So that would have been cool. The co-hosts are Deirdre Hall, yes, Marlena, everybody knows that, yes, and Jed Allen. So, who played, okay, now I know I was stumbling. I was not watching Days back then, and I did not know his character. Jed Allen played Don Craig on Days of Our Lives. But still, that would have been cool. In terms of reruns on a Tuesday afternoon, there's a lot of good stuff here. We've got Emergency. I would have always watched Emergency. Mary Tyler Moore was always good. Bionic Woman, or $6 Million Man. Ooh, so in $6 Million Man, a rock star played by Sonny Bono is accused of being a courier for an espionage ring. Also, I Dream of Jeannie, Brady Bunch, Mr. Rogers, and My Three Sons. And Merv Griffin has Betty Davis and Robert Wagner. Okay, 17-year-old me would have had no interest in that. 61-year-old me for sure would have been watching that. Oh, and Flipper. I loved Flipper. Who didn't love a show about a dolphin? A wealth of riches to watch at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. In our house, the news would have been on. We always watched the news in our house. Always. We were a news-centric family, for sure. And as we get into prime time, I can see already there would have been a clear winner in what would have been on in the main watching real estate in our house, which was the living room. And that would be a special live from the Met of Tosca. My mom loved opera. And so she would have wanted to watch this. And all of us would have moaned and groaned because we thought opera was stupid. And I hope to God we let my mom watch this on the color television. Although knowing my mom and how she always acquiesced to us, she was a very loving person, I'm hoping she did not go down in the basement and watch this on the black and white while we watched some stupid show in color in the living room. But this was a special of Puccini's classic is telecast live from New York City's Metropolitan Opera with Shirley Verrett. I hope we let my mom watch that on the color television. Oh, I hope we did that because she would have loved that. Also airing in prime time is Paper Chase, which was a phenomenal show. I would watch that again if that were streaming somewhere. So in this episode, Midterm Madness is making desperate characters of the law students. Especially Jonathan, played by Jonathan Siegel, who decides to seek illegal aid. There's also The Bear Who Slept Through Christmas. Oh, Happy Days. Please tell me we let my mother watch the opera instead of watching Happy Days. Okay, Happy Days, The Fonts, Henry Winkler. 'Tis the season to be surly. He won't even open an unexpected Christmas present from his father, who he hasn't seen since the age of 3. Okay, back to Tosca. I don't know how I missed this when I was looking at it the first time. Luciano Pavarotti. My mother loved him. Loved him. I know she had to watch that for sure. So I'm hoping we made that graceful for her and did not be bratty kids and make her watch something stupid like Happy Days instead. The sacrifices mothers make for us, right? So hopefully, I'm just saying now, I hope you got to watch that and enjoy that, Mom. So sorry if I was a brat about it. Do you ever have those moments when you look back and you cringe from those teenage years? I definitely have cringe-worthy moments from my teenage crabby hormonal self. That would be one of them if we made it hard on my mom to watch that show. Also airing, of course, probably after Happy Days, what comes next? Laverne and Shirley. Laverne and Shirley turned street performers to raise enough Christmas cash for Frank's annual holiday hobo dinner. Back when we were using the word hobo, which we would not use anymore. Oh, and there's also a Carpenters Christmas special. So I didn't, let me say it differently. I wouldn't have really been into the Carpenters back then. But now, of course, I would want to watch that. Karen and Richard Carpenter sing In the Yule with Christy and Jimmy McNichol. I loved Christy McNichol. Again, like Valerie Bertinelli, I wanted her to be my best friend. Georgia Engel, comedian Peter Pitt, and Gene Kelly. In what world does Gene Kelly not get first billing with the Carpenters? It's like some comedian named Peter Pitt, and oh, by the way, Gene Kelly. Like, how is that even okay with anybody? I can see how Christy and Jimmy McNichol might go first because that would bring in the kids. But Gene Kelly, come on. He has to get top billing with the Carpenters. Oh, what a time. Georgia Engel and some dude named Peter Pitt. Oh, and by the way, Gene Kelly. Oh my God. No way. I would have much preferred a Gene Kelly Christmas, although then I wouldn't have cared back then. But now I would. At the 10 o'clock hour, we have Mac Davis's variety show, but we also have Starsky and Hutch, which I would have watched. I liked that show back then. Starsky, of course, played by Paul Michael Glaser, is stunned to learn that his look-alike younger brother is involved in drug dealing. Oh, okay, they answered my question. I was going to say, did he play his look-alike brother in a split screen? But no, it looks like they had cast another actor. Nick Starsky, played by John Hertzfeld. I don't know if that looked like him or not, but it was not one of those split screen things. On Johnny Carson tonight, we have Tony Bennett, Charles Nelson Riley, who was always a funny guest, and astronomer Carl Sagan. And that brings us, well, there's more stuff airing still, but I would have been asleep by then. Oh, you know what would have been airing? Which again, 17-year-old me wouldn't have cared. I would have been asleep. But Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which was the movie that Heaven Can Wait was based on, which is a very sweet movie. A delightful tale of a pug. He's a boxer, I think that means, Robert Montgomery, who dies ahead of time and is offered a new life in compensation. I loved Heaven Can Wait, so I think I saw this movie at some point. And Tom Snyder on tomorrow has child psychologists Judy Hagedorn and Janet Kizier, who are identical twins. I was always fascinated by identical twins. And that brings us to the end of our Tuesday broadcasting schedule that I'm interested in sharing with you. There are a few more things airing, and you can watch things like the PTL Club, so religious stuff if you were up late. So we will pick up this issue again, and we will go from Wednesday through to Friday. And I haven't looked ahead to see the status of the TV Guide crossword puzzle, which I'm hoping we can do together in the next episode. So for now, my beautiful friends, I hope there was some laughter and lovely memories here for you. Perhaps you are asleep by now, having lovely dreams, and you're wondering why the Carpenters and Gene Kelly are in your dreams right now, and it will be because they are together on the astral plane entertaining us still. Isn't that a sweet thought? I love them. And I love you. So, my friends, I wish you the sweetest of dreams. You rest well, and we'll connect again soon. I love you, and thank you.